Wow, I just made a 53 and 5/32 cut rip on my table saw. Why am I making this huge rip? Well, I actually had to get special 5x8. This is 1/2 inch and this is regular MDF. They did not have ultralight in 5x8. The 5x8 stuff is kind of a nuisance because it's so big, it's hard to get in the truck. But I got it here, it's good. This mantle, this has a frame essentially and a recessed panel within the frame. That recessed panel measures 73 and 11/16 long by 53 and 5/32 tall. And I didn't want to have a joint on there because there's nothing that's going to conceal it, and I did not want a joint, so I decided I'm just going to go get 5x8 material. So I did, and rip it at 53 and 5/32. So this is going to be a mantle, and I've got to basically cut out this intersection, and it's got to be perfect. It's got to be dead nuts perfect on this. So I'm going to have to do some serious layout and make sure that I do some setup that's really good, because these things need to be exactly 4 1/16 wide, and the space in between has to be exactly 65 and 9/16 wide. So that's the opening, 65 and 9. So I have to make sure that these pieces are 4 1/16 inches each. And once that's done, that, obviously it's all gonna come together once I have this overall length cut. So that's what I have to do now, is cut this overall length. Square, and I'm gonna come back here and reference it off the back of the rail. That seems pretty good. Yeah, that's not it's not getting all the dust. It gets a lot of it, but still, much rather use my table saw. Some people swear by these things, and they are nice, especially if you have to plunge in to flooring and stuff, but it's not a perfectly dust-free cut. All right, it is very, very clean now, considering. This is the top of the workpiece. It's not, usually recommended to use the top for these cuts, but what are you gonna do? And just see, how close we are. Let's check it. That's square. So, according to that 10-inch ruler. Now we have two choices. One is we can actually do the same thing, the exact same thing, just measure it out, or we can take it to the table saw and back cut it. Tough job to do that, make such a good cut. Now the question is, did it stay where it needed to be? Did it wander? It's hard to say. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some measurements here and just see how close we are. I mean, we really need to be exactly right. We are a 32nd off this measurement right there. That's a 32nd. What does that mean? Well, that means that this part here is a little smaller than this. I believe I went off my line, and I can see I have a tick mark right there where my line is. I can see where, here you can see it's right on the line. You can see that line. Down here, it's off the line. So, unfortunately, it didn't quite cut exactly right. So I'm going to have to take a straight edge and whip that thing. And honestly, I'm sure I could use the Festool, But I have a feeling if I just use my router with a straight flush trim bit, this is going to give me a very good result. So I'm going to go ahead and set a router in. This thing needs to be really accurate. Okay, so I'm still splitting the line. And this thing down here, I'm flush. Okay, so I'm just using my little trim router, and it's equipped with a, I think that's a 1-inch flush trim bit, and this has the bearing on the top. So this is considered like a pattern bit, and it's a 1/4-inch shank to fit in this little trim router. Okay, so now you can see that's taken care of. That works out real well. That flush trim bit, those types of bits, you want to make sure that you don't go too fast because it will leave a bumpy edge if you do. In this particular application, I'm going to need this edge to be pretty clean because it is going to be going right up against a piece of wood. Again, you can follow me. This is what I'm doing right here. I'm doing this 4 1/16 width of the mantle inside width, and then this is a very narrow mantle. This is the way they want it, so that's what we're doing. Personally, I think it's a little thin, but it's not for me to say. So I'm going to take that line and I'm going to come up all the way down. And then I'm going to do the same thing up here at the header. We're going to do it all the way around. Boy, I'm getting a lot of calls today. And I'll bet none of them are solicitors. Okay, so I'm going to do one side, push it, and I'm going to stop it right where the intersection is. I can see that, and I have a mark right there, but I'll be able to see it, so I'm not worried. Okay, so you can see what I've done. I cut right up to the line, and now I'm going to cut this part. In order to do that, I have to plunge, just like I did for this cut, or that's what I did for the other cut, I'm sorry. So I'm going to put this up on the rip fence, just like so. And again, I got to raise the blade up. This is going to be a little trickier because of the location. I'm going to actually have to pull this thing out quite a bit. Do you see what's happening? It's dropping on me. As I want to do this, I'm going to be pushing, and you know, it's going to be a little bit tricky just because of the size of it. But again, I think it's going to be okay. So let me go ahead and do this. Wish me luck. Isn't this just something? Look at this. It actually stopped right where I needed to stop in exactly the right spot in order for this piece to fall. I mean, what are the chances of that? Literally, it's flush with the workbench, so it literally fell. I mean, it almost split right there. And although it didn't break, it just as well could have. Okay, since I didn't cut all the way through, I stopped short because it was really hard to do that back cut. Here, basically I just have to finish that little tiny bit up there, And it's still, some of it's cut in the bottom, but you can't see that. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so I'm using the fine part of it, not the rough. It's not as good. This is definitely the side you want to use. And I'm just taking my time. Okay, so that's really good. Maybe just a little fine tuning with some sandpaper possibly. But again, that's not going to be seen. The wood up against it should be good. Man, this is heavy. Oh my God. I cannot believe how heavy this is. It's only 1/2 inch thick. How do people work with regular MDF? Oh my God. That are going to be 6 3/8. So that's 6 3/8. That's 6 3/8, and then this outside right is also 6 3/8. These inside ones are 6 even. The top piece is going to go into the sides with pockets, and the pockets are going to be on the underside. So underneath there, be right there, because they'll be behind a panel. Okay, so I've got these laid out. These are the grooves that I'm gonna do in all these pieces. Some of them are stopped. These two are stopped grooves. So they go to the top and they don't come out the top. They're shy of the top. So you can see if I went out the top, you would see it would be exposed. Okay, I just finished all this up, and I just want to say how clean this is. This is typically this is a seriously messy operation, and I know most people know that when they route slots like this, and they go through, and immediately starts to shoot out dust. I had absolutely zero dust. I mean, this is crazy, and that's how good the dust collection is. It's just amazing. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm actually putting some panel supports in. This is going to actually hold the panel in place. Bottom, or a little bit above the bottom. And then it'll go up past the top. To do this, I'm putting glue in the groove, a pretty decent amount. And now, this is important, I'm pushing it firmly down, and I'm also pulling it so that it's tied up against the face inside here, right there, so that it leaves a space in the front. And that's going to give me my recess. I just want it to all be the same. Now I'm using this square to make sure that it gets nailed squarely. So I'm using 2.5 inch 16 gauge nails. And I'm just pushing it in. Now I have the depth set on 1 so that I don't go, basically it's flush with this. I don't want it to go through the front. I just have 2 more to do, and these are done. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I've got these things kind of mocked up here where it needs to be as far as that goes. And I'm going to pin it from the outside because this is really long. I'm just going to pin it with some glue also, and then from the inside I will hit it with some pocket screws. 1 3/4 pin, 23 gauge pins here I'm going to use. The panel is actually here, and I'm using it as kind of like my layout, but what I'm thinking is I think I need to move it, because what's going to happen is once I get this thing going, the panel is going to be underneath, and it's going to be a problem getting it out. So I'm actually going to separate this and remove the panel just to get it out of the way. So that's pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on this, a pretty nice heavy bead of glue, and make sure that thing gets nice and glued. And also I'm going to glue this because this actually partially comes in here, so I might as well put glue on that too. Flush. I know I use that word a lot, but you got to have them aligned really well. Okay. This whole joint is going to be visible, so you know what? I just totally messed up. I glued the wrong surface. What an idiot. Oh my gosh. I cannot believe I just did that. Well, I cannot believe I just did that. So I just had to wipe this off really well with a damp cloth, and I just literally, that was the biggest bonehead mistake. God. All right, so now these guys are flush. I'm going to go ahead and pin this. I'll probably find those nails somehow, somewhere. But as of right now, that's good. And I'm going to just put some glue, make sure there's plenty of glue on that front joint as well. All this stuff's going to be visible. So, but I do want to make sure that I clean off the excess glue that could be in the crevice of the front. That'll keep my panel from sitting. Okay, so that's good right there. And now I can hit it with some pocket screws and pull it tight. Put them on edge. Put it on edge. Okay. So that's going to be just like that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and glue this guy up. Put a significant amount of glue on this thing again. Nice. On this inside, you can see I've got the nice little glue squeeze out there, which is great. That's what I wanted. And just put it right into the paper towel and just slide it up. That way it gets nice and tight in the... Pretty hard to get that cleaned out without doing that. When that glue dries, I don't want to see that joint. All right. I may have to add some later, but that's pretty darn good. It's amazing what glue, when you're all done, little joints like that are open or that appear tight but seem to be open when you paint them, they become visible. All right, we're good here, so I just have to take this piece, and since this is 3/8 of an inch shorter, I need to raise it up. So I actually need to put a shim underneath here. So I just cut these pieces down. I'm going to use these as shims. So the reason I did it this way, this whole thing has been done this way, and the reason I did it this way is because the last time I did it, I used dados for the panel. And the problem was I couldn't get these pieces aligned very well because of the placement of the dados, the depth of them, the panel wasn't quite right. And I figured, you know what, this is actually I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the panels exactly this width so I can squeeze it in there and basically drop it down into this cavity, and it should be tight all the way around rather than using dados. Now the only caveat to that is that I have to figure out a way to support the panel, and that's why I use these pieces in routed dados for the support. So I can glue this up nicely after I test fit it, make sure everything fits right. The structure should be nice and square pretty much all by itself because that's square. That's why at the beginning I was saying I needed to have this thing be pretty darn accurate. All right. Let's see how this fits. No, I didn't measure the bottom. I probably should have. Because these pieces are slightly tapered. When you measure something like this at the top and these pieces are free to float, most likely the leg is going to have some movement in it as it comes all the way down here. So get that thing kind of shifted. Okay. This really, when you look at this, it looks like it's in a dado. This thing is fitting really well. Yeah. Oh man, this is so much better than the last one. And look at that. As I put the piece in, it actually squeezed this. Look at that. The glue came out because it was so tight. So this fit right here, I mean, look at that. Look at how nice that is. Going down here. This is really good. So when I put this in, I'm going to glue it. Yeah, this is superb. This piece here, so you can see here, I want to be flush with that guy. But what I'm going to do is when I get to the job site, I have to scribe this to the floor. So this is going to be trimmed. Now this thing's ready to go. I just need to glue it up. You know, as we look at this, yeah, there you go. So that's nice. We want that piece to be nice and square. Oh, and you know what? That joint right there, even though it's flush, that needs to be sanded before I put this panel in. I was just thinking about that. That needs to be dealt with before I put this in. Well, I'm going to go ahead and ease these while this stuff's kind of drying. Give me something to do. I'm putting a nice little ease on this. Some things you can sand after glue ups, but some things you cannot, and this is one of those. That joint is very nice. And then this one down here is the same thing. It's very nice. So we're good to go. What we have to do is put this panel back on with some glue and this thing almost doesn't even need any clamps. That's crazy. But I'm just going to put some small clamps just to pull these parts nice and tight together. You know, it's not going to hurt. Just little tiny clamps. Now I'm going to be sanding this front edge, so I'm not like too concerned about the front edge, but you definitely don't want to be causing marks. So, you know, slam it down. I'm pushing down as I tighten it up. While I'm doing this, let me show you. See that joint right there? See how nice and tight that is? Now when I do this one, you can see there's some play, or there's just a tiny bit of movement. So I'm just going to take the clamp, draw it tight. I mean, it's nothing of a space. Go away. Sweet. Yeah. So I'll do that with all these. Just going to use my little square, and I'm going to go inside the leg and check to see if it's square. Well, when this is all done, I'm sure this will be a mantle that will look great in their house, which is this is what they wanted. But also it's just something that is a little more unique. So maybe other people will see it and think, man, that's pretty cool. Maybe they'll like it and want to do it. And other than, you know, it's a little bit of a tricky build, but it's not difficult. Like, it's just not, it's not as everyday as, you know, things that we do, that I do. I don't think this is that difficult. It's just something that's a little bit out of the ordinary. So it makes you think a little bit. A couple hours since we glued it up. So the glue's definitely had time to set. So we're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and sand this guy. Got my 5-inch sander hooked up. Boy, this looks really good. Came out nice. So much dust, even though I just vacuumed it. Okay, we are on site, and this existing mantle is going to have to come off. This looks like it's just, you know, just loosely on here, hopefully with those screws right there. Like it's a screw, right? It looks like it's a Phillips head screw. And it looks like it's at an angle, just like that. There it is. Wow. It's put in with a French cleat. Jeez. But that thing was in studs, so yeah, that was just a French cleat. Okay. So we got that cleared. It's nice and clean. The only problem with this thing is the blade I like to use, this one doesn't have enough reach because of this bump out. It's a terrible design. So I have to clean it with this or finish it with that. Okay, so you can see that looks really good. See, that looks really good. Now if I look around this, right off the bat I can tell it needs to be scribed. See, like that huge opening? It's pretty wavy. Now even though we are dropping this thing down a little bit, this is that distance. We basically have to drop it down. So I'll mark the bottom, cut that out. And I'm going to do that before we scribe the thing. I also want to make sure that this is level. Being that it's a mantle and everything. That looks good. I just adjust it to the height that I need. And in this particular case, it's going to be the width minus a little bit. Whatever this distance is. I don't want it to be a tight fit because I know it's going to be, there's some thin set. But let's just see if we okay, so you can see that's going to leave us with an equal reveal. All right, so we'll go ahead and mark that. This is our depth. So we want to go ahead and go on the floor, and we want to get the hammer out of the way. Now, of course, this is going to be done with a jigsaw, but then also a belt sander to clean it up. So that's not much. Okay, so that looks good right there. space to this contour rather than cutting this out. I think that'll be a better solution. Okay, so this is the scribe. It turned out really good. Tight on the floor. And tight up there. Even reveal all the way. That was really good. I'll tell you. Now we're ready to do this. So that space I chose hopefully was the biggest opening. Come down here. Connected. Now, this part here, see how it's open? Just going to close that up. Didn't affect this here. Yeah, so it's connected. Good. All right, so we'll take this and we'll there's that. Now, if you remember, when we built this, we made the inside dimension 3/8 inch narrower than this one. You can see that. So that we could scribe this guy without interfering with this one. Since I knew we were behind here, I always like to do that anyways. It's just a good way of doing it. So we don't have to scribe both pieces, just this one outside piece. So here's what we have to cut off. So we could take the jigsaw to this. We could take this outside, use the jigsaw, and then clean it up with the belt sander. There's a decent amount, for sure. And you always want to make sure that you angle it towards the inside of the mantle leg so that the outside is the highest point. As you bevel this, the outside of the mantle leg will be touching the wall. The inside may not. Get this going. I think I'm going to put a fresh piece of sandpaper on my sander. 60 grit. I don't have a lot of room to work with, but it's enough. I think I'm going to go get my pads. This 1-inch material is taking too long. I'll use a jigsaw. This transition here from the uppers to the lower, I need to do with the belt sander. Okay, so we're good. This is it. It's nice. Came out really, really good. So now with the glue on there, after this thing dries, it's going to be good to go. Strong as can be. It just obviously needs to be painted, caulked and painted. But as you can see, I have one nail here going into that cleat, one nail here. And this really, I mean, it's not totally necessary. One here and one there, so 4. Just to keep it from pulling away. I don't want it to pull away at all. So I want it to stay nice and tight. And since when they caulk it and, get ready to paint this thing, those little holes will go away. So that's it. That's good. So this is it's definitely a good installation. This is not a totally easy install by any means. So it definitely is I like how there's the exactly even reveal all the way around, and scribe the bottom so I didn't have to cut out that piece there. Yeah, when they paint it, they're gonna caulk it, so they'll put a little caulk down there at the bottom, I think. I'm not sure exactly. They might. This is that life-proof flooring. Not sure what they're going to do with it, but anyways, this looks really good. Yeah. See what I mean by these joints are visible? I need to take my sandpaper after I'm all done and just kind of go over all these edges and make sure they're all smooth and there's nothing with all the scribing I had to do. I went out front and put this out there, and I used the jigsaw to scribe this thing. And honestly, I mean, the 1-inch thick material was taking forever to sand it, so I just decided to go ahead and do it with the jigsaw, which is normally how I do it anyways if it's a big amount. But I only need to describe that much in some areas, but it was just taking quite a while. This is some thick material, even with a brand new 60 grit. But anyways, it would have been okay, but it just would have taken some time. And I only had to do a couple little areas up here. These little transition areas are a little tough to do with the jigsaw, because you can easily go into one of the other areas, and I don't want to cut, because I cut these at a bevel, so as you're coming up with the jigsaw, you could literally come up right through here if you're not paying attention. So it's better just to wait and then hit it with the sander. So, but this is awesome. I mean, it's a very, very good installation. I'm real happy with it. Yeah, looks nice. And it's actually a very nice mantle. Looks good in here.